Let me reaffirm Nigerian government's unwavering commitment to fight corruption and illicit financial flows. By any consideration, corruption and cross-border financial crimes are impediments to development, economic growth, and the realization of well-being of citizens across the globe. Nigeria is ready and willing to partner with international agencies and individual countries on a bilateral basis to confront crimes and corruption. In particular, I call upon the global community to urgently redouble efforts towards strengthening the mechanism for dismantling safe havens for proceeds of corruption and ensuring the return of stolen funds and assets to their countries of origin.
In a report by the United Nations Development Programme, every year, $1 trillion is paid in bribes, while an estimated $2.6 trillion are stolen annually from corruption, a sum equivalent to more than 5% of the global gross domestic product. In developing countries, UNDP says funds lost to corruption are estimated at 10 times the amount of official development assistance. Corruption has been perceived as a serious crime that can undermine social and economic development in all societies. No country, region, or community is immune to it.
Sustainable Development Goal 16 calls for reducing corruption and bribery, strengthening the recovery and return of stolen assets, and developing effective, inclusive, and transparent institutions. This is a global appeal for fairness, a collective demand for justice. This event today is a timely opportunity to reflect on how the international community can make good on these commitments. Corruption affects developed and developing countries alike, and complicity knows no borders. Those who can least afford corruption suffer the most. It cripples economic development, stifles entrepreneurship, and deters investment. Society cannot function equitably and efficiently when public officials, from doctors to police, judges to politicians, enrich themselves rather than perform their duties with integrity. Corruption robs funds from schools, hospitals, infrastructure, and other vital services. Human trafficking and migrant smuggling, illicit financial flows, and illegal trade in natural resources, weapons, drugs, and cultural heritage are all made possible because of corruption. It fuels conflict, and when a hard-won peace is achieved, corruption undermines recovery. Corruption and impunity are corrosive, breeding frustration and fostering further corruption when people see no other way of achieving their goals.
Little wonder the Muhammadu Buhari-led government in Nigeria insists on freeing the nation from its grip.
I hereby introduce for formal consideration an enactment into law by the distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2016 and the Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2016. Number 1, the Money Laundering Prevention and Prohibition Bill 2016. This bill provides for the repeal of the Money Laundering Prohibition Act 2011 as amended in 2012 to make comprehensive provisions to prohibit the laundering of the criminal activities, expand the scope of money laundering offenses, provide protection for employees of various institutions, bodies, and professions who may discover money laundering, enhance customer due diligence, provide appropriate penalties, and expand the scope of supervisory bodies while recognizing the role of certain self-regulatory organizations to address the challenges faced in the implementation of comprehensive anti-money regime in Nigeria. 2. The Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2016. This bill seeks to facilitate the provision and obtaining by Nigeria of international assistance in criminal matters, including the provision and obtaining of evidence and things, the making of arrangements for persons to give evidence or assist in criminal investigations, recovery, forfeiture, or confiscation of property in respect of offences, the restraining of dealings in property, or the freezing of assets that may be recovered, forfeited, or confiscated in respect of offences, the execution of requests for search and seizure, the location and identification of witnesses and suspects, the service of documents and other matters connected herewith.
The country has experienced a rise in the prosecution of corrupt cases under the Buhari administration. The global campaign, United Against Corruption, focuses on corruption as one of the biggest obstacles to achieving the Sustainable Development Goals.
If it's here or its representative, please.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime commends Nigeria's implementation of the United Nations Convention report against corruption, identifying several successes and good practices that have followed the ratification of the report since 2014. Some of these strides include the establishment of anti-corruption units across government ministries, departments and agencies, provision made for civil society consultations in the adoption of the national budget, as well as the adoption of the Freedom of Information Act. The report also specifically recognizes Nigeria's leadership in pursuing asset recovery cases and its readiness in sharing its wealth of experience with other countries facing similar challenges. However, the report identifies a number of areas requiring further improvements.
Report of Nigeria against the requirements of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption as we embark on the decade of action to accelerate implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. Corruption and insecurity are among the primary spoilers of sustainable development. Leaders around the world have agreed to set the ambitious goals of ending poverty in a single generation, providing access to health, education, social protection, and job opportunities to fight inequalities, as well as tackle climate change and protect the environment. Living up to these commitments and achieving the individual results will not be possible unless we manage to put corruption in check. It is high time we act decisively and jointly. The United Nations wants to hear from you. We want to know what you expect from the international community, regional bodies, governments, as well as individual ministries, departments, and agencies to prevent and counter corruption.
Across states and in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, anti-corruption agencies stormed the streets, with the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, taking the lead. Civil society organizations joined the EFCC to work against corruption. The walk terminates at the State House Banquet Hall, giving way to a frank conversation. According to the 2019 report from the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, an estimated 117 million bribes are paid in Nigeria yearly, while bribery among public office holders reduced from 32.3% in 2016 to 30% in 2019.
From January 2019 to November ending 2019, we are still counting. The year is yet to end. We have recorded 1,070 convictions.
This day is of great importance to us, as the cardinal objective of this government is to fight corruption or eradicate it. This one-day summit, organized by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, in collaboration with the maritime and transport sectors and some development stakeholders, to highlight zero tolerance to corruption, is in tandem with the United Nations Convention 2019 theme, United Against Corruption. In view of this, I view this summit as a step in the right direction This initiative complements the various programs being implemented by this administration to block leakages and improve transparency in all sectors aimed at boosting revenues in critical areas of the Nigerian economy.
Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka is more interested in commenting on the recent rearrest of the convener of the Revolution Now protest, a pressure group against the state of governance in the state, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. He relates his rearrest to acts of corruption.
The DSS is accused tomorrow of corruption. The DSS can say, yeah, this is hate speech. Off with his head. And then maybe when we get to court and the judge grants the poor felon temporary reprieve through bail, any security agency can then jump in the court, rearrest the felon, break into the citadel, the sanctuary of justice. And within these last few days, we've had even that institution being accused of corrupt practices. We had testimonies from those who've managed to escape the hellholes of the security agencies after being immured there for years without knowledge of their families. Let's stop being scared of expressions like revolution now.
Some kilometers away from the seat of the central government in Abuja, civil society organizations, clergymen, corps members, students, security agencies, and representatives from various ministries and parastatals in the state gathered to mark the International Anti-Corruption Day.
It has been established that corruption leads to massive poverty, lack of facilities such as good roads, electricity, water, health facilities, and other infrastructures, such as industries and educational facilities. Lack of ethics and value in our everyday activities has affected our integrity in public and in private affairs.
I quite believe that it's because people don't have the fear of God. That is the main reason why corruption is so endemic in our system. If you look at the Holy Scripture, the Holy Writ itself, both the Holy Bible and the Quran, God hates corruption. In fact, God believes definitely that if you are corrupt, you cannot stand before Him and ask for anything. So I believe definitely that if we have the fear of God in us, we will definitely run away from corruption. And then secondly, if we are contented with what we have, because contentment with godliness is great gain. If we are contented with what we have, the tendency of our being corrupt will definitely not be there.
The battle against corruption is currently raging.
The Commissioner, ICPC in Kogi State, avers that the fight against corruption can only be won if all Nigerian citizens contribute their quota, as the scourge is inimical to development.
As we exploit the options of collaboration and cooperation in the fight against corruption, we shall intensify activities to detect and investigate acts of corruption, embezzlement of public funds, and abuse of office. The days of impunity are over. The warning must be given loud and clear that the corrupt will be dealt with firmly and with the degree of ruthlessness that the law permits. Let me use this opportunity to remind you that the ICPC is vested with the responsibility to receive and investigate reports of corruption and prosecute offenders where necessary, to study and review corrupt procedures and systems in government establishments with a view to eliminating or minimizing corruption, and to educate and mobilize the public against corruption. ICPC is determined to make anti-corruption crusade affect governance and well-being of the generality of the
From the motor park garage in Osogbo, the Osun State capital, ICPC officials display placards sensitizing people about the ills of corruption. The rally moves to the school where an interactive session takes place.
We have to start from somewhere. And I thank God that Nigeria has started. We have joined the other nations of the world about fighting against corruption in the land. And we started some years back. But you will agree with me that there is improvement. And we keep on improving every day, every second of our life. But what we need as Nigerians, we need to give information to anti-graft agencies like the ICPC, the EFCC. If we are doing that, we are helping ourselves, we are helping our nation. Because without fighting corruption, we cannot go to anywhere as a nation. The major problem that we are having as a nation is corruption. Ministries that we have, federal ministries, we have state ministries, we have governors, we have the House of Rep, the senators, we have. All of them, in one way or the other, they are corrupt. But if we are not keeping quiet, if we are giving information to anti-graft agencies, definitely we'll get there one day.
Every system is prone to corruption. But as far as my university, for instance, is concerned, like I was listening to the Vice Chancellor saying, they may say there are fake professors anywhere, that will not be surprised. But if they now say there is a fake professor in OAU, they will be surprised. So it depends on how each institution, the leadership of the institution, is living up to integrity and accountability. And that is what we clear it. Each person appointed into a position of responsibility, if he's properly sought out to be a person of integrity, it will flow down the line.
Activities in Kano State are not totally different. EFCC enumerates its achievements in the past 3 years of recoveries.
The Commission has done a lot as the lead agency to ensure the discharge of its statutory responsibilities. And one area that has been an area of concern has been that of the cybercrime, which has given this country a very bad name. And the Commission has actively been on the trail of suspected internet fraudsters with almost daily arrests and prosecution. In the Kano Zonal Office of the Commission from January 2019 till date, we have filed over 100 criminal cases in court, and they are in various stages of prosecution. So far, we have secured close to 30 convictions, and we have received 495 petitions, out of which 325 are undergoing investigation. Some of them are civil and outside our purview, so we don't indulge. The Commission has made several recoveries. This year alone, we have recovered the sum of 643,942,612 naira. We have also recovered $706,800, 2,800 yen, and 294,950 naira Saudi Riyal. We have also recorded forfeitures of several properties, both interim and final. And all these recoveries, especially final forfeitures, of course, will go to the government coffers. So I thank you all for taking our time, and I crave your participation to ensure that we continue to rid our country of the menace of corruption. I invite all of you to partner with the Commission. Like we say, see something, say something, and we will do something.
In the South-South Akwa Ibom State, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, stormed the streets of Uyo, also in a campaign, distributing leaflets to sensitize the public against corruption. The Commission says it has recovered 300 million naira, while 60 convictions have been secured in 2019.
Whosoever who is found wanting, EFCC will go into it and start investigating, and at the end of the day, if we get our ample evidence against him, we are going to prosecute him. We don't have any thing say selective. We don't do selective justice in EFCC. But if there's any, you can ask me, find out. Because if we allow it, as I have said, it will not augur well for us. What are we leaving for the generation to come? That if you allowed this type of things continue in our country, it will reach a point that it will just stop. Once it gets stopped, it will boomerang. It will bounce back. It will backfire. If it backfire, we all know the consequences of this that action. So we don't want it to happen that way. That's why we always, at intervals, continue to sensitize people. Let them at least come along with us to fight it together.
The call for more whistleblowing heightens. 84 convictions and recovered monies up to the tune of 200 million naira from January to December 2019 is what the EFCC says has secured as part of its crackdown on corruption in Edo and Delta states, also in the South-South region.
If you can remember vividly, the last anti-corruption we told you we scored about 52 convictions. So you can look at the difference within the span of few months that we have really made positive progress. Like I always said, this is not the effort of EFCC alone, but this is a synergy between EFCC and other stakeholders.
My dear brother.
EFCC says it is deepening her network with the international community to effectively combat financial crimes.
We have signed a contract. When I say contract, we don't have to get paper and pen. No. But to understand that we are one. To understand that we are the one to fight this monster called corruption. In the words of His Excellency, corruption is such a monster that deters development in any country of the world. You have to prepare how best to fight it.
Speaking on the sideline of the Nigerian Anti-Corruption Commission training in Abuja in November, the acting chairman of the EFCC maintains that such a network is needed to combat a borderless crime like financial corruption. He speaks alongside the Liberian ambassador to Nigeria, Mr. Alhassan Conte.
After the LAC outlined clearly its training needs and other technical assistance it could benefit from the EFCC chairman crafted the objective of the training as enhancing the investigative capacity of LAC authorities to provide a platform for the observation of judicial proceedings related to anti-corruption cases. According to Chairman Magu, quote, it will also afford the opportunity to highlight the effectiveness of interagency collaboration in the fight against corruption, end quote. The chairman went further to say that the training is in line with Article 18, subsections 3 and 4 of the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption. The convention encourages state parties to exchange expertise and provide assistance in preventing and combating corruption and related offenses.
We are willing to partner with all nations in the fight against corruption, and the credit should go to the president, who has an outstanding, no reservation for zero tolerance in corruption. And we have entered a lot of mutual MOU with several countries on the need to exchange information and intelligence, and if need be, we'll go to their country and operation will be conducted jointly, and the needful will be done.
Thank you. Okay.